This story I'm going to tell you is about a little boy called Dusty and the exciting adventures that he has in the world of the dinosaurs. So, listen very carefully to what happens to him. Dusty stood on the fringe of the wood looking back at the small cottage which was now his new home. "This is absolutely great," he said aloud. "I never want to go back to the city again." He turned and followed the winding path into the wood, keeping his eyes open for any sign of wild life. "There must be lots of wild creatures in a place like this," he muttered. Dusty wandered on, unaware of the dozens of pairs of eyes that watched him from the undergrowth. It would be a while before this city boy would learn the secrets of the country, like where to look for a badger or fox, or how to creep up on a herd of wild deer. Suddenly, Dusty came across a very strange-looking tree. It stood alone, with a thick, gnarled trunk and huge roots, which seemed to be clawing their way into the earth. He clambered round, under and over the web of roots, and on the other side of the tree he found something very exciting. "It's hollow," gasped Dusty, climbing along a large root towards the split in the bark. "A hollow tree." He peered into the black hole, then poked his head inside. "I wonder what's in here," he thought, his curiosity growing. A moment later, Dusty was climbing in, first a leg, then an arm. He stood in the darkness, his skin itching as imaginary spiders crawled up his arms. In a little while, Dusty's eyes became used to the pitch black. He could see that there were spiders hiding in every nook and cranny. Furry creatures scuttled along the dry floor, and above him hung a colony of large bats. Dusty shuddered. Suddenly, he saw a glimmer of light ahead. Stretching out a hand to brush away the cobwebs, Dusty shuffled nervously along. It grew lighter and warmer, and soon Dusty found himself at the entrance of a mossy cave. He wandered back into the daylight, feeling puzzled. There was something different about this part of the wood. The air was hot and still. The trees had long, broad leaves. It was all very strange. The silence was broken by a loud crash, followed by a huge thud. The ground trembled, and so did Dusty. Another great crash echoed through the forest. The small boy was frozen to the spot in terror. His legs felt like jelly, and he wobbled all over as the terrible noises came closer. The next moment, a large tree seemed to uproot itself and came toppling towards him. With a squeal of fright, he leapt backwards, landing in a heap among a clump of small bushes. "Oh, boulders!" A deep voice boomed through the woodland. "I'll never find them this time." Dusty heard the voice again. "Oh, dear. Oh, dear." Whoever or whatever it was sounded very fed up. Dusty crept forward, parted the leaves and peered through. To his astonishment, there, in a clearing surrounded by a tangle of broken branches and trampled leaves, sat a huge, fat creature. "Oh, Bron, you've really lost them this time," it said sadly, drooping its very long neck. The great animal seemed to be searching for something, with eyes screwed up in the effort to see. Dusty realized at once what it was looking for. Lying close by in a leafy hollow was a large pair of spectacles. "He's lost his glasses," gasped Dusty, beginning to feel sorry for the helpless monster. Creeping nervously out of his hiding place, Dusty tiptoed across the clearing and picked up the spectacles. "Are you looking for these, sir?" said Dusty quietly, holding up the glasses. "Eh? Who? What?" The creature almost jumped out of its skin. "Who said that?" "It's me, sir, Dusty. I've found your glasses." The long neck looped round, bringing an oval, smiling face to within an inch of Dusty's.
"Thank you, Dusty,"
it said gently as the boy clipped the specs back in place.
"That's better. Oh, there you are. Hello, my name is Bron."
"Are you a brontosaurus?" inquired Dusty, looking at the dinosaur with admiration.
"Yes, of course," replied Bron proudly. "A little overweight, but otherwise a perfect specimen."
He patted his fat tummy to illustrate the point. "A little short-sighted, too," added Dusty with a giggle. Bron glanced around at the wreckage and a deep, hearty laugh rolled down his body.
"Yes, I suppose that's true," he roared.
"But I still think you're wonderful," said Dusty. "Just wonderful." The two ambled together through the forest, their friendship growing with every step. Occasionally, Bron paused to munch at a particularly tender bunch of leaves, whilst Dusty spread himself out across the creature's broad back. Very soon, they came to the shores of a great lake.
"I must have lunch now,"
explained Bron. "But you've been eating all the way here," laughed Dusty. "You can't be hungry." Bron didn't hear. He was already feeding noisily in the treetops. Dusty sat on a rock and gazed across the water. "What a marvellous place," he thought to himself. Yap! A sharp bark brought Dusty back to his senses. Whirling round, he came face to face with another dinosaur. Yap! Yap! A small lizard-like creature was leaping up and down on his hind legs, barking angrily at Dusty. For a moment, Dusty didn't know what to do.
"All right, Perky."
Bron's voice silenced the lizard.
"Pack it in." "Did he frighten you, Dusty?"
"No, not really," replied the boy. "I did," interrupted Perky.
"No, you didn't,"
said Bron and Dusty together. I did.
"Take no notice,"
said Bron with a smile as the scowling dinosaur hurried off sulking.
"Perky's always trying to scare people by pretending to be fierce. No need to worry about him."
Dusty and Bron played together on the shore. The brontosaurus was great fun. His body was perfectly made for a boy to slide down like a huge banister. Dusty could make it in one go from the top of Bron's head to the tip of his tail. The two friends laughed till large tears rolled down the dinosaur's cheeks. Their mirth was cut short by a distant call. "T-Rex! T-Rex! T-Rex!"
"Oh, my goodness,"
groaned Bron, suddenly looking very scared.
"Quick, Dusty, follow me."
Dusty hurried after his friend, up the beach towards the trees. Perky zoomed past them, calling his warning. "T-Rex! T-Rex! T-Rex!" Bron reached the trees first.
"Hurry, Dusty," he called. "Run! Run!"
The air was filled with a ferocious growling as pounding footsteps approached the trees. With only a stride to go to safety, Dusty tripped and fell with a thud.
"Oh, no!"
cried Bron as the monstrous dinosaur galloped towards his young friend. There was only one thing to do. Reaching down, Bron grasped the seat of Dusty's trousers firmly between his teeth and hauled him swiftly up into the treetops. From their hiding place, the two watched motionless as T-Rex paced up and down, searching for them, his small red eyes flashing angrily. Eventually, the Tyrannosaurus gave up. With a loud roar, he turned and rushed off. They waited till all was silent again before they moved. "Thanks, Bron," gasped Dusty. "You saved my life."
"Quite all right, dear boy," beamed Bron. "Come on. I think we'd better get you back."
Bron led the way through the wood to the cave. "Bye, Bron," said Dusty, smiling fondly.
"Cheerio, Dusty," replied his large friend. "Come again, won't you?"
Promising to return, Dusty made his way back through the cave, out of the hollow tree and home. "Just in time for tea, Dusty," called his mother as he stepped into the kitchen. "Did you find anything exciting in the woods?" "Yes," replied Dusty thoughtfully. You'd never believe how exciting it was. Here we go with another story about Dusty. This one's a bit funny too, and it's called Primeval Pop. "I think you ought to do some practice on your guitar today, Dusty," said his mother as she cleared the breakfast table. "But, Mom," exclaimed Dusty, "I'd planned to go down to the wood today." "Just half an hour," she continued, "and then you may go where you like." Dusty trotted up the stairs to his bedroom. He took his guitar from its place in the corner, sat himself comfortably on a small stool, and began to practice. After a while, Dusty's thoughts wandered. He was looking forward to seeing Bron again and meeting more of his strange dinosaur friends. "I wonder if Bron likes music," thought Dusty. "I know," he said out loud. "I'll take my guitar and play for him." It wasn't very long before Dusty was heading across the fields towards the wood, with his guitar slung across his back. It was a bright, sunny day, and the air seemed to be filled with bird songs. Dusty followed the path that led to the old hollow tree. Every time Dusty came to the hollow tree, it was almost as big a surprise as the first. He had an awful feeling that it would not be there. Dusty squeezed himself and his guitar through the gap in the bark and into the darkness beyond. He felt his way carefully between the cobwebs, along the now familiar passage, through the mossy cave, and out into the heat of the prehistoric forest. "I wonder where Bron will be right now," thought Dusty. "I know," he said. "Food. He's almost bound to be having a snack." With that, he set off through the trees, heading in the direction of Bron's favourite munching patch. Sure enough, Dusty found his dinosaur friend chomping away busily in the treetops by the shores of the lake. "He hasn't noticed me," whispered Dusty. "I'll give him a surprise." Perching on a tree stump, he took his guitar and began to play. As the forest echoed with his music, he found himself surrounded by dozens of strange little creatures, all attracted by the sound. Dusty had been playing for quite some time before the leaves above him parted and Bron's huge head peered down.
"Dusty!" he boomed. "It's you!"
"Hi, Bron," called Dusty. "Do you like my playing?"
"Oh, I think it's wonderful. Aren't you clever?"
At that moment, all the small creatures broke out into a round of applause, agreeing with Bron.
"You see," he smiled, "they all loved it too. Play some more for me, dear boy."
Bron curled himself into a huge heap, indicating to Dusty to sit on the tip of his tail, and everyone settled down to listen to the concert. Dusty played song after song, and the dinosaurs loved them all. "You do like music," said Dusty at the end of his last piece.
"We dinosaurs love it," cried Bron. "We have our own special kind of music."
"What's that?" inquired Dusty curiously.
"We call it Primeval Pop," grinned Bron.
"Primeval Pop," laughed Dusty. "That sounds great. Can I hear some?"
"Come on then," said
Bron, lurching to his feet.
"I think the boys are rehearsing today. I'm sure they won't mind us listening in."
Bron trundled along, with Dusty sitting astride his broad back. "Let's sing as we go, Bron," called Dusty, picking out a tune on his guitar.
"That would be lovely,"
replied Bron.
"You start. I'll join in."
The path they followed led them away from the lake towards a group of small rocky hills.
"Nearly there,"
puffed Bron, plodding up a windy track. Dusty could hardly wait. "Primeval Pop," he thought. "It must be amazing." Quite suddenly, they came upon a huge round hollow between the hills, its sides cut in large rocky steps, like the terraces of a football ground. In the centre was a flat slab of stone.
"This is it," said Bron, "our rock arena."
"Gosh, Bron, what a place!" whistled Dusty. "Is this the stage?"
"That's right,"
replied Bron.
"Tank and the boys play down there."
Out of a cave behind the stage appeared the most astonishing dinosaur Dusty had ever seen. "He's a triceratops," said Dusty thoughtfully.
"Yes, but no ordinary one," replied Bron. "He's the leader of the group, a great musician. Hello, Tank."
The colourful Tank looked up. "Oh, it's you, Bron. Hi. I'm worried. The biggest concert of the year this afternoon, and this morning Styro has an accident. Breaks an arm."
"Oh, the poor thing," replied Bron sympathetically. "He's your guitarist, isn't he?"
"He's the best," said Tank. "We can't replace him. We'll have to cancel the concert."
"Oh dear,"
said Bron.
"What a pity."
And then his face brightened.
"Dusty," he called, "why don't you play the guitar for Tank?"
"Well, I'd love to, but I've never—" But it was too late. Tank was heading back towards them with a smile on his face. "Great!" he roared. "Come on, Dusty, let's have a quick rehearsal." Dusty found to his surprise that he could play all the songs given to him. "Hey, you're really talented," boomed the Triceratops. "When we have got the rest of the band with us, it's going to be great." Dusty and Bron strolled to a quiet spot by the lake to relax.
"Oh, Dusty," smiled Bron, "I'm so proud of you."
"Bron, I'm nervous," replied the boy. "I just hope it will be all right." What a different scene greeted the two pals when they returned to the rock arena. Dinosaurs of every shape and size, together on the slopes, chanting and dancing in happy, excited groups. Dusty had never seen such a gathering. The boy hung on to Bron's neck, a little afraid.
"Don't worry, old chap," boomed Bron. "They're all very friendly. Just a bit excited, that's all. Here's Tank."
"Hi, Dusty. Come and meet the boys."
"Good luck, Dusty,"
whispered Bron, as Tank led his small friend away. The band were all busy tuning their instruments and preparing for the concert. As Dusty and Tank appeared, they cheered, crowding eagerly round their leader. "This is our new guitarist," said Tank proudly, putting his arm around Dusty's shoulder. "Without him, we couldn't do the show." One by one, the dinosaur musicians came forward to shake Dusty's hand, as Tank introduced them all by name. "This is Rocky, our drummer, and Styx on Dimetrodon, Rhodey on bass, and Biff plays the bongos." "I'll never remember all these," thought Dusty, his mind a complete jumble. The excitement backstage was interrupted by a voice Dusty recognized. "Yep! Back on stage, please! Back on stage!" "Hello, Perky," smiled Dusty, happy to see a face he knew. "You know Perky, eh, Dusty?" growled Tank. "He's our road manager. Okay, boys, let's go." The Triceratops grinned at Dusty, who looked very nervous. "It's going to be fine, Dusty. Go out there and enjoy yourself." Dusty did just that. The band walked on stage and the whole arena went wild. The cheering, whistling and clapping rolled around the rocky walls like thunder as the dinosaur musicians settled down with their instruments. Tank walked to the front of the stage. "Friends!" he roared. The audience became quiet. Dusty watched, spellbound, as Tank controlled the noisy crowd. "Once again, it's time for Primeval Pop." Dusty seemed to be part of the band right away. His guitar fitted in beautifully with the heavy rock and roll music. Soon he was having the time of his life. The band played on and on. One great song followed another. The dinosaur audience loved it all. Their clapping became louder and louder after each number. "And now," announced Tank, "we proudly present the fabulous Hadro sisters, Cory, Lamb, and Fussy." Down the stage came 3 hadrosaurs. Dusty could hardly believe his eyes. "They're beautiful," he called to Rhodey. Dusty had never enjoyed anything as much. The 3 voices blended perfectly, filling the arena with wonderful harmony as the Hadro sisters floated through their performance. It was soon time for the final song. Tank trundled forward. "Before our last number, we'd like to introduce our guitarist, the newest member of Primeval Pop, Dusty." Dusty stepped forward to take a bow. The audience stood and cheered. Dusty's face was red with happiness. Waving to the fans, he smiled down at the crowd and saw Bron amongst them. "Well done, Dusty," called Bron. "I knew you could do it. You're a superstar." "Have a good time, Dusty," his mother's voice called from the kitchen as he clicked the garden gate behind him. "Don't get lost in the woods." "I won't, don't worry," Dusty replied. "See you at tea time." Hitching a small rucksack over one shoulder, Dusty set off down the field towards the trees, whistling to himself. "I wonder what Bron's up to," he thought as he approached the wood. It was a few days since he made his first journey through the hollow tree into the strange world of dinosaurs. Dusty hadn't told anyone about his adventure. No one would have believed him anyway. Feeling very excited, he picked his way through the trees towards that very special hollow trunk that stood in the middle of the wood. He was beginning to believe he would never find the ancient tree when suddenly there it was, just as Dusty remembered. "Oh, boy," he gasped, hardly able to contain his excitement as he peered once again through the dark hollow. "Here we go," he said to himself as he slipped into the black space inside the tree. Dusty hardly noticed the spiders and creepy crawlies that lined the passage. In no time at all, he was blinking in the bright light that streamed into the entrance of the prehistoric cave. Dusty had arrived once again in the land where no other human being goes. In the land of the dinosaurs. The tropical forest was silent. "I must find Bron," muttered Dusty, as he crept stealthily forward. "I certainly don't want to meet that Tyrannosaurus again." A rustling in the undergrowth ahead halted Dusty in his tracks. "Is that you, Bron?" he called softly. There was a moment's silence. Then a loud "Yip!" "Oh, Perky, it's you," said Dusty, happy to see someone he knew. "Yip, yip," barked Perky, leaping up and down angrily. "Oh, do stop it," laughed Dusty. "Do you know where Bron is?" "This way," replied the small dinosaur, dashing off into the forest at great speed. Dusty followed as fast as his legs would carry him. "Hey, Perky," called Dusty, "slow down." It wasn't long before Dusty was absolutely exhausted. He flopped to the ground, panting. "I'll never catch him now," he gasped. "And I think I'm lost." "Oh, you poor thing." A strange new voice spoke to him. Whirling round, he came face to face with the most astonishing creature he'd ever seen. "A stegosaurus," stuttered Dusty, shivering with excitement. "Call me Delilah," said the dinosaur in a soft, purring voice. "I know who you are. "Do you?" replied Dusty. "Oh, yes." Delilah flashed her long eyelashes. "Bron told me all about you. You're Dusty." "Do you know, Bron?" chirped the boy excitedly. "I was looking for him, and I got sort of lost." "Bron's a very good friend of mine," purred Delilah. "I've known him for 2,000,000 years." "Wow!" laughed Dusty. 2,000,000 years. That's almost forever. I was just on my way to meet him. Would you like a lift?" "Yes, please." Dusty climbed carefully onto Delilah's wonderful spiked tail, then up her back between the rows of beautiful red fins. "Ready?" she called. "Ready," replied Dusty, feeling on top of the world. Delilah picked her way through the forest towards the lake. "Bron will be having lunch about now," she said. "Bron always seems to be having lunch," laughed Dusty. "Oh, yes, he's got a big appetite, my Bron," chuckled Delilah. "There he is now." "Bron!" called Dusty, waving. "Bron!" The Brontosaurus stopped munching in the treetops and peered through his spectacles towards them.
"Is that you, Dusty?"
he cried. "Yes, and me too," added Delilah.
"I'm so glad you've met,"
beamed Bron.
"What do you think of my lovely Delilah, Dusty?"
"I think she's just beautiful," replied Dusty. The three friends strolled by the lake, talking and laughing together in the warm sunlight. They climbed a small rocky hill, and soon Bron was puffing and panting.
"Oh, gosh," he gasped. "I need a rest. Do you mind?"
"Don't be silly," laughed Dusty. "I'll climb this rock whilst you get your breath back." Delilah and Bron sat in a shady spot, and Dusty hauled himself up onto the flat-topped rock. From there, he could see for miles over the treetops to the hills beyond. "What a good place for a picnic," he said, remembering the lunch his mother had packed in his rucksack. "Do you want one?" Reaching down, he offered his dinosaur friends an egg sandwich.
"Yes, please,"
said Bron instantly, taking the largest. At that moment, the air was filled with the sound of beating wings, and a dark shadow fell over them. "Dusty!" squealed Delilah with a terrified look on her face. "Get down, Dusty!" The boy turned round to find hovering above him a dreadful flying creature with a great beak and huge, powerful talons.
"It's Dracula!"
called Bron anxiously.
"Run, Dusty, run!"
Dusty didn't need a second warning. He leapt to his feet and set off across the rocks, dodging and weaving as Dracula swooped down, snatching at him with his nasty claws. "Leave him alone, you wicked thing!" shouted Delilah angrily as the cackling Dracula dived time and again at poor Dusty.
"Let me at him,"
boomed Bron, trying to sound tough.
You flying fish cake!"
But Dracula was not to be distracted. The huge pteranodon waited his moment, then, with a deadly dive, plucked Dusty off the ground by the straps of his dungarees. "Bron, help!" cried Dusty as the monster carried him high into the air, then swooped down in a long glide round the heads of the two anxious onlookers. "Oh, Bron!" sobbed Delilah. "Do something, Bron! He's carrying Dusty away to the island!" But it was too late. With a loud cackle and a flap of his huge wings, Dracula carried Dusty high into the sky and away over the lake. Dusty glanced down to see the water glinting a long way below. With a dreadful feeling in his tummy, he closed his eyes, completely terrified. The flight towards Dracula Island seemed endless, but at last the pteranodon drew close to his lair, carrying his prisoner. Dusty's heart sank as he saw rocky cliffs ahead, swarming with the dreadful creatures. Suddenly, the air was filled with hoarse, cackling cries as the pteranodon danced in excitement at the approach of their leader. "Oh, my goodness!" gasped Dusty as he imagined what was in store for him on Dracula Island. But that was not to be. With a loud ping, the straps of Dusty's dungarees broke loose, and he fell instantly from Dracula's grasp. Down and down plunged Dusty, the air whistling past him as Dracula and his gang howled in disappointment. Before he had time to think what was going to happen next, Dusty hit the water with a loud splash. In a moment he bobbed to the surface. To Dusty's relief, Dracula had flown onto the island and could be heard above all the other pteranodon complaining bitterly about his bad luck. Dusty laughed out loud. He was a good swimmer. Being in the water didn't worry him at all. He set off for the shore confidently. But it was further than he had imagined. Soon his arms and legs were very weary, and there was still a long, long way to go. "Golly, I'm not going to make it," he spluttered, sinking gradually lower and lower into the water. Poor Dusty closed his eyes and made one last effort to swim for his life. It was hopeless. All his strength gone, Dusty began to sink. Suddenly, a very strange thing happened. Dusty felt himself being lifted out of the water. Opening his eyes, he saw blue sky above and the water rippling away below him. For a moment, Dusty was very confused. How could he be floating in mid-air like this?
"All aboard for the Skylark!"
A deep, friendly voice answered all Dusty's questions. "Bron!" he cried happily from his perch on top of Bron's head. "You have saved my life again!"
"Think nothing of it, dear boy," beamed the Brontosaurus. "I think it is time we went home, don't you?"
This is a story that I know you're going to like. It's called Delilah's Rescue, and it's about Dusty and the adventures that he has when he meets a very special dinosaur. Dusty stopped in his tracks as the woods echoed with a strange, deep crying sound. "Whatever can that be?" he thought, listening intently. "There it goes again," Dusty muttered. "It's coming from over there." He picked his way through the trees in the direction of the noise. The cries led him directly to the great hollow tree, the way into Dusty's secret passage to the dinosaur world. "Oh dear, oh dear." The voice filled the dark passage, disturbing all the small creatures that lived in the cracks and crevices. "Gosh," whistled Dusty, "that sounds like Bron. He sounds upset. I wonder what can be the matter." Dusty slipped quietly into the darkness and hurried through the cobwebs along the narrow tunnel. Moments later, he popped out of a prehistoric cave into the bright sunlight of the primeval forest. He saw Bron right away, sitting by the entrance to the cave looking very unhappy indeed. Huge tears rolled down his cheeks, dropping off the end of his nose into the great pool of sadness which surrounded him. As Bron had taken off his glasses, he didn't see Dusty right away. "Boo! Boo!" he wailed. "Bron!" called Dusty. "Bron, it's me! Whatever is the matter?" The dinosaur stopped crying for a moment and peered around through watery eyes. "It's me, Dusty!" called the boy again. Bron fumbled for his spectacles, balancing them carefully on his tear-soaked nose. "Oh, Dusty!" he cried. "I'm so glad to see you. Something awful has happened. It's just dreadful." The Brontosaurus began to cry again. "Tell me what's wrong," said Dusty, stroking his great friend's neck sympathetically. "Oh, come on, Bron. Maybe I can help."
Delilah, my Delilah. She's been captured by that brute T-Rex. He's locked her in his lair in the mountain. I'll never see her again. Never, never.
"Oh, no," moaned Dusty, remembering his narrow escape from the ferocious Tyrannosaurus. He thought very hard. There must be a way to rescue Delilah. Dusty was silent for a while, then suddenly he leapt to his feet. "I need to get some things from home. You wait here. I won't be long."
Be quick, Dusty, called the dinosaur, or it will be too late.
Ron felt a little more cheerful now. At least there seemed to be a glimmer of hope. He waited patiently beneath the broad leaves of the prehistoric forest. It wasn't long before Dusty returned carrying a long rope and a sack. "I've got what we need," he said. "Let's go."
Aren't you afraid?
inquired Bron, his eyes wide in admiration. "Who, me?" replied Dusty. "Afraid of that stupid old T-Rex? He's all talk."
And teeth,
added Bron with a shiver. After a long trek, they came to a narrow valley with sheer rocky cliffs on either side.
T-Rex's lair is at the far end of this gorge,
whispered Bron. Dusty thought for a moment. "Can we get along the top of the cliff?" he asked.
I think so, replied Bron. We can try anyway. We're getting close, Dusty, murmured Bron, gazing into the gloom below them from the cliff top. Dusty flopped onto his tummy and poked his head over the edge. "I can see the lair, Bron," he whispered. "What's that on the rocky ledge outside?" That's Boris the sentry, one of Dracula's lot. He guards the lair while T-Rex sleeps. We'll never get past him, moaned Bron. The boy and the Brontosaurus huddled together, deep in thought, as the cave below them boomed with the snores of the sleeping T-Rex. "Got it," said Dusty suddenly. "Bron, let me tie this end of the rope around your neck." The other end was fastened around Dusty's waist. Dusty tucked the sack under his arm. "Pretend you're a crane, Bron." What?"
replied the dinosaur. "Never mind. I want you to lower me carefully over the edge of the cliff and down onto Boris's ledge, as quietly as you can." Dusty was hoisted into the air. Bron made a very good crane. His long neck stretched over the valley, silently lowering Dusty towards the watchful pteranodon. Dusty hung for a moment right over Boris. He opened the sack wide, and as Bron lowered him, slipped it right over the ugly creature's head. Boris was helpless. The confused pteranodon then took to the air, flying blindly round in circles. Dusty untied the rope. Giving Bron the thumbs-up sign, Dusty took a deep breath and steadied himself for the danger ahead. Picking his way along the well-worn path, Dusty crept into the Tyrannosaurus's lair, hardly daring to breathe. It was a dreadful place, the walls echoing to the snores of T-Rex sleeping on a bed of straw in one corner. Dusty paused, shivering at the sight of the monster. He almost lost his nerve. Then he saw Delilah. She was shut in a barred cage at the end of the lair. Dusty's fear vanished at the sight of poor Delilah. He crept forward, past the sleeping Tyrannosaurus, up to the bars of the cage. "Delilah," he called quietly. "It's me, Dusty." The beautiful Stegosaurus looked up. Her eyes widened with surprise. "You brave, brave boy," she whispered. Dusty slid back 2 bolts, and the cage door swung open with a creak. T-Rex mumbled in his sleep and rolled over as prisoner and rescuer froze. To their great relief, the monster slept on, snoring even more loudly. Dusty stepped into the cage. "Hello, Delilah," he whispered. "Oh, Dusty," she cried, giving him a huge hug. "I'm so glad to see you." "Shh," hissed the boy. "You'll wake him up. Come on, let's get out of here." Dusty led the way out, Delilah following in his footsteps. As they passed him, T-Rex became very restless, as if he felt in his sleep that something was wrong. His huge body tossed and turned, his teeth grinding together. "Bron's on the cliff top," said Dusty. "He'll help you up with a rope. Go on, you go first, Delilah." All seemed to be going well. Delilah found the rope, tied herself on, and Bron hauled her up the cliff face. But Dusty's smile of triumph was suddenly changed to a look of horror. T-Rex was awakening. He stumbled around the lair, still half asleep, as Dusty crouched fearfully behind a boulder just outside. What would happen if he discovered that Delilah had gone? Dusty heard the cage door open, then close with a bang. A great roar filled the air, followed by a thundering of monstrous feet as out pounded the Tyrannosaurus, his eyes aflame with anger. There was only one chance for Dusty. He bolted like a scared rabbit down the valley, hoping that T-Rex hadn't spotted him. He was out of luck. The monster caught a glimpse of the scurrying figure and with a loud bellow gave chase, catching up with every huge stride. Dusty ran as fast as his little legs would carry him, but it wasn't fast enough. A glance over his shoulder told him that T-Rex was only a few yards behind. Dusty gasped desperately.
"Dusty! Dusty! Catch hold!"
Bron's voice came from above as the rope appeared right in front of him.
"Grab the rope!"
Dusty did as he was told, and just as T-Rex reached forward to stop him, the boy was whisked high into the air out of reach. Bron the crane had come to the rescue. Dusty was hauled up to the safety of the cliff top, where Delilah and Bron waited. "Thanks, Bron. That was close," gasped Dusty, as the friends gazed down at the helpless and furious Tyrannosaurus. The boy and the Brontosaurus shook hands happily. Delilah looked at them both with admiration in her eyes. "Dusty and Bron," she said solemnly, "you are my heroes." Well, those were 4 stories about Dusty and his friends the dinosaurs. Hope you liked them. Why don't you listen to them again? You'll like them again and again. I know you will.